But I wanted to strangle him. You want to strangle him? I did.
He doesn't hold back. He doesn't play nice. If you get on Stallone's bad side, you won't just feel it. You'll hear about it in interviews, headlines, and sometimes even on screen.
I mean, the guy is 7 times Mr. Olympia, but don't underestimate Rambo, you know?
For 5 decades, Sylvester Stallone has been a force, sculpting himself into an icon, grinding through injuries, rewrites, rejections, and studio politics to build an empire on sheer will. But behind the sweat and scripts lies something more personal, a memory for disrespect that never fades. He doesn't fake Hollywood friendships, he doesn't forget who crossed him, and he definitely doesn't forgive quietly. One wrong move, one moment of arrogance, one hint of disrespect, and you might find yourself on the wrong side of a Stallone stare, or worse, in a story he tells, with your name in it. He doesn't need to throw punches anymore, his words do it for him. Rocky, Rambo, The Expendables, Creed. Every era of action cinema bends through Stallone, but behind the explosions is a man who never forgot who made things harder than they had to be. And when Stallone decides he's done with you, that's it. You're out of his frame, and maybe the industry's too.
Too much pride, too much machismo, too much everything.
Ego.
Yes.
He's worked with legends, but he's clashed with them too. Here are the 5 actors Stallone couldn't stand and never wanted to work with again. And trust me, it got personal. Number 1. Richard Gere. Some actors clash. Stallone and Gere combusted. Their feud started before either of them became household names, on the set of The Lords of Flatbush in the mid-70s. What should have been a gritty coming-of-age story turned into a behind-the-scenes war zone. The problem? 2 young actors both trying to be the alpha in the same room. Stallone once said, "We never hit it off. He was like this rock star who just landed on Earth and was ready to fight everybody." The tension hit its peak over something bizarre. Lunch. According to Stallone, Gere brought a greasy chicken sandwich into the back seat of a car they were rehearsing in. Grease dripped onto Stallone's pants. Words were exchanged. Then fists. Gere was out. Dropped from the film. Replaced. And that was the end of their working relationship before it had really begun.
Simon.
I don't want nothing on Simon, Annie.
But the beef didn't cool with time. Even decades later, Stallone wasn't subtle about how he felt. In one resurfaced interview, Stallone joked, "There was no love lost there. Let's just say, I wasn't sending him Christmas cards." Some speculated that the feud was fueled by ego, 2 rising stars battling for dominance, but others say it was something deeper. Stallone came up the hard way, built like a fighter. Gere had a smoother presence, more aloof, less grounded. On set, that contrast became conflict. And it wasn't just that one film. Behind the scenes, word spread fast. Hollywood directors started to separate the 2 actors on casting boards, knowing the friction wasn't worth the fallout. Even producers reportedly avoided pitching them in the same projects. By the early 2000s, the tension was so well known that late-night hosts would reference it in interviews, sometimes getting smirks, sometimes getting silence. Neither actor wanted to rehash it, but neither denied it either. Years later, they still kept their distance. Even when they attended the same events or award shows, they stayed on opposite sides of the room. No reconciliation, no handshake moment, just distance. And Stallone didn't mince words when asked if he'd ever work with Gere again. Not a chance. Not even in a cartoon. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was the kind of fallout that shapes an actor's inner circle, forever. Stallone built a career on loyalty. People who had his back stayed. People who didn't, gone. And Gere? He became the poster child for what Stallone refused to tolerate, ego without accountability. He never mentioned him with malice, but he never mentioned him with respect either. And in Stallone's world, that says everything. Number 2. Bruce Willis. At first, it looked like a perfect match. 2 action icons. 2 legends. 1 explosive franchise. But behind the scenes of The Expendables, something snapped. And the friendship between Sylvester Stallone and Bruce Willis went from brotherhood to breakdown. It started with respect. Stallone had always spoken highly of Willis, even helping him secure a spot in the original Expendables, a project Stallone wrote, directed, and cast with military precision. Willis played the mysterious Mr. Church, a role custom-built for a cold, calculating presence. It worked. But by Expendables 3, things changed. Willis reportedly demanded $4 million for just 4 days of work. According to sources close to the production, Stallone didn't just find that excessive, he found it insulting. Soon after the negotiations fell apart, Stallone went public. Greedy and lazy, a sure formula for career failure. That post wasn't subtle, and fans instantly connected the dots. Bruce was out, replaced by Harrison Ford, and the message was loud. Stallone had no problem cutting ties, even with longtime friends, if the respect wasn't mutual.
All the actors that were originally hired, when they were intended to be hired, fell out.
The fallout wasn't just professional, it was personal. Stallone and Willis, once seen laughing at events and presenting awards together, were suddenly ice cold in public. No more collaborations, no public apologies, just silence. When asked later about the situation, Stallone didn't deny anything. He simply said, "When money becomes more important than the movie, you've already lost." It wasn't just about budget. For Stallone, it was about principle. The Expendables wasn't just a paycheck, it was his baby. A project built on loyalty and respect. The moment that trust broke, there was no repairing it. Even insiders said Stallone was hurt, not because of the money, but because he expected more from someone he once called a true action brother. And in Stallone's world, betrayal doesn't fade, it calcifies. To be fair, Bruce Willis never responded publicly. No interviews, no social media posts. But the silence said enough. And when he stepped away from acting in 2022 due to health reasons, Stallone posted a tribute. It was brief, but it was telling. "We go way, way back. Praying for the best, my old friend. Maybe time dulled the sharpest edges. Maybe not. But the crack in that bond? Permanent." Their rift became one of the most talked about in action movie circles, not because of drama, but because it showed the cost of pride. For Stallone, it was a reminder. Fame fades. Respect doesn't. Number 3. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Some rivalries end with a handshake. This one ended with a trap. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone weren't just competitors. They were the two biggest action stars of the 80s, locked in a cold war of muscles, movies, and one-liners. From Rambo to Terminator, box office battles weren't just inevitable, they were personal. But underneath the smiles and sound bites was a grudge that ran deeper than most fans realized. Stallone once said, "We couldn't even be in the same room without trying to outflex each other." It wasn't just about screen time, it was about status. Both were icons, both were alphas, and both hated coming in second. Things boiled over when Stallone was reportedly tricked into starring in Stop, or My Mom Will Shoot, a comedy flop that Stallone later blamed on Arnold. According to multiple interviews, Schwarzenegger pretended he was interested in the role just to bait Stallone into taking it first. The result? One of Stallone's most mocked performances, and a legendary behind-the-scenes power move.
Then Sly called me and he says, "Hey, have they ever talked to you about this movie?" And I said, "Yes, I was thinking about doing it."
For years, their rivalry dominated the action genre. If Stallone blew up a helicopter, Arnold had to drop a building. If Arnold released a Christmas movie, Jingle All the Way, Stallone had to release a family film. Spy Kids 3 cameo, Aunt's voiceover, take your pick. It was a cinematic arms race. But behind the competition was real tension. Stallone once admitted, "I wanted to strangle him." Literally. We wanted to kill each other's careers. It wasn't until the late 2000s that things began to thaw. Age, humility, and maybe exhaustion brought them closer. When they appeared together in The Expendables 2, it was the first time fans saw the rivalry shift into respect. Still, Stallone never pretended it was easy. He once reflected, "The rivalry made us better. But man, it made us bitter too." Their friendship today feels earned, not forced. They've gone from trading shots to trading stories, from competition to collaboration. But the scars from their feud still linger in the way they talk about each other, always with a layer of respect, but never without history. Their rivalry wasn't staged, it wasn't for press, it was real. Two titans, throwing punches through characters, franchises, and legacies. And while they eventually buried the hatchet, neither forgot who drew first. For Stallone, Arnold will always be the one man who could match him punch for punch, line for line. The one actor who made him fight for his place, not just on the screen, but in the culture. And for that, maybe, just maybe, there's a little gratitude buried under the grudge. Number 4. Richard Dreyfuss. Some actors bring tension to the screen. Others bring it to the set. Sylvester Stallone is no stranger to strong personalities, but when it came to Richard Dreyfuss, the clash wasn't loud, it was lingering. A quiet kind of friction that made every scene feel heavier than it should have. In 2009, both actors appeared in My Life in Ruins, a light romantic comedy shot in Greece. It wasn't an action movie, and it wasn't Stallone's usual turf, but what happened off-camera was anything but light. According to multiple crew members, Dreyfuss was difficult to direct, uncooperative, and often dismissive, not just toward production, but toward his co-stars as well. Stallone, though not the lead in the film, had come on to support the project and expected a smoother ride. He later reflected, "You can feel when someone thinks they're the smartest guy in the room, and you can feel when they want you to know it." Tension began during rehearsals when Dreyfuss allegedly refused to read lines with anyone he felt was beneath his level. According to on-set reports, Stallone didn't react publicly, but his demeanor shifted. He went from collaborative to distant.
It's mostly what is known as atmosphere, always in the background.
The friction wasn't physical, it wasn't even vocal, but the energy between them became obvious to everyone involved. Stallone once said in an interview, without naming names, "Some people act like they're still chasing Oscars. I'm just trying to make the day better for the crew." The situation never escalated, but after production wrapped, Stallone reportedly told his team he had no interest in ever working with Dreyfuss again, and he never did. Unlike some of Stallone's other feuds, this one never became public tabloid drama. There were no headline blowouts or Twitter jabs, just a quiet final distance. But when asked, years later, about difficult co-stars, Stallone didn't hesitate. "I've worked with tough guys, I've worked with big egos, but there's nothing harder than someone who thinks the work is beneath them." Dreyfuss has never publicly commented on Stallone, and likely never will. He's been open in other interviews about clashing with directors like Steven Spielberg during Jaws, and with Bill Murray during What About Bob? So his history with conflict isn't fiction, it's documented. But what makes this one different is how subtle it stayed. There was no shouting, no walkouts, just the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. For Stallone, the experience was a reminder. Not every fight needs fists. Sometimes it's enough to just walk away and never return. Number 5. Wesley Snipes. When two alphas walk onto a set, there's only room for one to lead. On Demolition Man, 1993, Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes brought two different worlds together, one from old-school action, the other from martial arts cool. On screen it worked. Stallone as the frozen-in-time cop, Snipes as the anarchic criminal Simon Phoenix. But off-screen, that chemistry didn't translate. From day one, there were reports of tension, not explosive, not violent, but persistent, and it all came down to control. Stallone liked order on set, efficiency, discipline, respect. Snipes had a different rhythm. Stallone once recalled, "He had a way of doing things that didn't really match mine. Let's just say, it made the days longer." Snipes, a skilled martial artist, insisted on choreographing his own fight sequences, and sometimes refused to perform them as directed. Crew members later described moments where Snipes would stay in his trailer for hours, show up late, or challenge line readings mid-shoot. At one point, Stallone reportedly stepped in and asked the director to tighten things up, a move that didn't go over well with Snipes.
We take an ice bath.
I'm telling you, I try, but I can't stay there long. I don't understand.
The real breaking point came during post-production. Stallone wanted the action sequences to be tighter, faster, but Snipes allegedly objected to having any of his scenes trimmed without his input. The studio backed Stallone. Years later, when asked what it was like working with Snipes, Stallone kept it short. "Let's just say, it was an experience, and I don't need to experience it again." Snipes never publicly fired back, but he's had a history of on-set clashes with directors, co-stars, and studios. The most infamous case came later, during Blade: Trinity, where multiple reports claimed Snipes became so difficult that he refused to open his eyes in some takes and communicated with crew through post-it notes. It wasn't just ego, it was control. And Stallone doesn't give that up easily. When asked in a separate interview about actors he wouldn't rehire, Stallone didn't name names, but his words pointed clearly in Snipes' direction. If the job's harder because of one guy, that guy won't be in the next movie. Simple as that. They haven't worked together since. No sequel, no cameo, not even a reunion photo at fan events. The silence between them has lasted longer than any studio contract. Still, Stallone never slammed Snipes publicly. He never threw him under the bus. But in Stallone's world, distance says more than dialogue. Because for a man who's worked with hundreds of actors, directors, and stunt crews, he remembers the ones who made it harder than it had to be. And once you're out of the circle, you don't get back in. Stallone didn't blacklist with words. He did it with silence. A cold nod, a skipped call, a door that never opened again. These 5 actors didn't just clash with him, they burned a bridge that never got rebuilt. Some came in with swagger, others with ego, but none of them made it past the second round. Because in Stallone's world, loyalty isn't optional. It's the price of admission. And once that bond breaks, you're not just off the set, you're off the radar, for good. So, who do you think almost made the list? Or maybe should have? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you're into untold stories from behind the camera, feuds, fallouts, and the names nobody talks about, subscribe for more deep dives you won't hear on the red carpet. In Hollywood, grudges fade, but not his. He didn't just remember who had his back, he remembered who didn't.